Hello, dear listener. Welcome to Calm Cloud Chronicles, where imagination drifts and stories unfold. Sit back, relax, and let the journey begin. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more soothing tales. The Golden Harmony. Under the embrace of golden sunlight, a young philosopher named Alara arrives at a sprawling garden nestled deep within a valley. Each corner of this haven breathes life. Vibrant flowers sway in the gentle wind. Trees extend their branches as if in conversation with the sky. Amidst this beauty stands an enigmatic gardener known only as the Los, a sage with years etched into his warm smile. Alara, restless in her pursuit of purpose, begins a dialogue with the Los. What is the secret to eudaimonia, the art of living well? She asks, her eyes reflecting curiosity tinged with frustration. The Los replies not with words but gestures, handing her a seed and guiding her to soil that is both sunlit and shaded, a subtle metaphor for life's balance. As the days turn into weeks, Alara learns that the seed requires care and attention, a balance between watering, sunlight, and patience. She observes how the interplay of light and shadow fosters growth. Through tending the garden and engaging in philosophical exchanges with the Los, she realizes that virtue, purpose, and fulfillment are cultivated through consistent effort and the harmony of reason and emotion. One day, as her seed blooms into a radiant flower, the Los speaks for the first time about the garden's secret. Each plant here thrives not by overpowering its neighbors, but by finding its space, its balance. So too, Alara, must we live, not chasing dominance, but seeking harmony within ourselves and the world. As she gazes at the flourishing garden, Alara feels a quiet joy, a sense of fulfillment that isn't fleeting, but enduring. She understands now that eudaimonia is not a destination but a process, woven intricately into the choices and connections of everyday life. As the seasons wove their tapestry of change over the garden, Alara found herself drawn deeper into its mysteries. Every corner seemed to reflect a new lesson, how the gentle bend of a willow whispered of resilience, or how the unwavering stance of an ancient oak spoke of rooted strength. Yet, it was the wildflowers, scattered and unrestrained, that began to captivate her thoughts. One morning, as Alara tended to her blossoming flower, she posed a question to the Los. You've taught me of balance and harmony, but these wildflowers, they flourish without care, without purpose. Are they not chaotic? The Los, seated on a stone bench, chuckled softly. Chaos and harmony are not opposites, dear Alara, but partners in the dance of life. The wildflowers, in their unplanned beauty, remind us that not everything requires control. Sometimes, allowing life to unfold freely is the greatest wisdom. Alara sat in thought, the words echoing in her mind. She realized how much of her journey had been driven by a need to define, to categorize, to make sense of every moment. Yet here, amidst the chaos of untamed blooms, she felt an undeniable peace, a sense that not everything needed an answer. Days turned to months, and as the garden mirrored her inner transformation, Elara began to understand the delicate interplay of effort and surrender. She learned to cultivate both the neatly ordered paths and the untamed wilds within her own heart. Through this, her conversations with the Los deepened, exploring virtues not as rigid ideals, but as living practices that adapted with the currents of life. One quiet evening, under a sky painted in strokes of dusk, the Los spoke once more. Elara, the harmony you seek is not perfection. It is the acceptance of imperfection, the dance between what we can shape and what we must let be. With this, Elara felt a profound stillness. The garden, the teachings, the very essence of her journey, they had led her to a truth as simple as it was profound, that life's beauty lies not in its answers, but in its questions and the graceful way we meet them. As spring painted the garden in vibrant greens and soft pinks, Elara began to notice how her once restless spirit had settled into a tranquil rhythm. Each sunrise brought new wonders, the murmurs of dew-kissed leaves, the gentle hum of bees weaving through blossoms, and the quiet wisdom of the Los as he tended the garden's untamed edges. One morning, she approached the Los with a newfound curiosity. What happens when harmony is disrupted? Can it always be restored? She asked, her voice tinged with wonder. The Los smiled knowingly and led her to a patch of wilted flowers. Here, the soil is imbalanced, the light too harsh, he explained. But watch. He knelt and worked carefully, enriching the soil, planting seeds that thrive in shadows. Harmony is not rigid. It bends, it adapts. Disruption is not the end, it is merely an invitation for renewal. Elara marveled at the wisdom in his hands, the way they restored life to what seemed lost. She realized that even amidst life's trials, the capacity for renewal always remained. It was not about clinging to perfect equilibrium but learning to embrace the shifts and rise again, stronger. Over time, she carried this lesson into her own thoughts and choices. When moments of doubt emerged, she paused to reflect. How might she adapt? What seeds of resilience could she plant? And though the path ahead remained uncertain, she felt ready to meet it with a calm heart and steady resolve. One evening, as twilight bathed the garden in silvery hues, the Los spoke his final words to her. Elara, harmony is not a destination. It is a way of being, a dance with imperfection, renewal, and the endless beauty of change. Elara gazed at the radiant blooms, both cultivated and wild, and felt a profound sense of peace. The garden had become her teacher, her sanctuary, a reflection of the balance she had found within. As time wove its tapestry across the valley, the garden transformed, not in its essence, but in its purpose. Elara, now an adept caretaker, found herself surrounded by those drawn to the garden's serene beauty and the wisdom it quietly held. Travelers, dreamers, and seekers alike came from distant lands, their hearts heavy with questions, their eyes filled with hope. With Thalas's teachings as her guide, Ilara began to share the garden's lessons. She taught visitors how to plant seeds of resilience within themselves, to see beauty in imperfection, and to nurture their inner gardens with balance and care. Each individual carried away a piece of the garden, not physically, but in the form of understanding, a memory of connection. One day, as she walked amidst the blooms, Ilara felt a strange, stirring sense of purpose. The garden had become more than a sanctuary. It had become a living web of interconnected lives, a cosmic dance between harmony and renewal. And while she wondered about her place within the grand pattern of existence, she did not feel compelled to search for answers. She had learned to embrace the question itself. Years passed, and whispers of the garden spread further. The valley became known not for its blooms or landscapes, but for the balance it offered to those who visited. Ilara, once seeking, had become the weaver of its harmony, a quiet legacy she nurtured with each passing season. And on her final walk through the garden, with golden light draping the sky, Ilara paused by the stone bench where the Los once sat. She whispered softly, not perfection, but renewal. Not control, but balance. The wind carried her words like a gentle song, weaving them into the garden itself, an eternal reminder of the dance she had come to understand. As the years unfurled, the garden became more than a sanctuary. It evolved into a quiet beacon for those who sought wisdom in the symphony of life. Ilara embraced her role not as a teacher, but as a fellow traveler on the path of harmony. She spoke less and listened more, finding that the garden's silence often held answers more profound than words. One autumn evening, a young poet named Selim arrived at the garden. He was burdened with a weight of doubts, questioning his place in the world and the worth of his art. Ilara welcomed him, sensing the gentle fragility in his soul. She guided him to the willow tree, its graceful branches swaying as if whispering secrets to the earth. "Sit here," she said softly, "and write not from the desire to prove yourself, but from the joy of expression. Let the wind carry your words as freely as it carries the leaves." Selim hesitated but began to write, letting go of his need for perfection. Over days, his verses grew like the wildflowers, messy yet beautiful, chaotic yet harmonious. When he left, he carried not only his poetry but the understanding that art, like life, flourishes in balance between effort and surrender. Ilara found herself continually amazed by how the garden adapted to each visitor, mirroring their struggles and guiding them toward renewal. With each new arrival, the garden wove a thread into a growing tapestry of interconnected lives. It was as though the garden had a soul, one shaped by the balance of light and shadow, chaos and order. And one winter's night, as snow blanketed the valley in quietude, Elara gazed out over the sleeping garden. She felt the steady pulse of its existence, not as an entity apart from her, but as a reflection of the balance she had learned to nurture within herself. The stars above seemed to hum in agreement, their cosmic dance resonating with the rhythm of the garden below. Elara understood that her journey with the garden was eternal, even as her earthly time would someday fade. Its lessons would carry forward in the hearts it had touched, in the lives it had transformed. Harmony was not hers alone. It was a gift meant to be shared, rippling outward into the vast tapestry of existence. Years passed, and the garden flourished in ways even Elara could not have anticipated. Its legacy grew beyond the valley, inspiring communities in distant lands to cultivate their own spaces of reflection and renewal. The whispers of its harmony resonated like ripples across still water, touching lives in ways both profound and subtle. One day, amidst a gentle drizzle, a group of children arrived at the garden, their laughter echoing through the trees. Elara watched as they explored with unbridled curiosity, marveling at the flowers, the trees, and the shimmering raindrops clinging to leaves. They stumbled upon the stone bench where the Los had once imparted his wisdom, their innocent chatter filling the air with warmth. Elara knelt beside them, sharing stories of the garden's origins. She spoke of the lessons it offered, the balance between light and shadow, the renewal found in disruption, and the beauty of imperfection. The children listened intently, their eyes wide with wonder. "Do you know," she said softly, "that every flower here has its own story? Each one grew not by accident, but through care and patience, and sometimes, through challenges that made it stronger." Inspired, the children asked to plant their own seeds, to leave their mark on the garden's ever-growing tapestry. Together, they chose a quiet corner and carefully placed their seeds into the soil. Elara smiled, knowing that these small acts of creation would continue the garden's legacy long after she was gone. As she walked through the garden that evening, a sense of profound interconnectedness washed over her. The garden was no longer just a reflection of her own journey. It had become a living testament to the shared human experience, a place where individuals could find harmony within themselves and with the world. Under a sky adorned with countless stars, Elara sat on the stone bench and closed her eyes. She felt the pulse of the garden, the whispers of those it had touched, and the gentle hum of the universe itself. She realized that the garden's true essence lay not in its blooms or paths, but in the hearts of those who carried its lessons forward. And as the night deepened, Elara whispered a quiet prayer to the cosmos. "May this garden, and the harmony it inspires, grow endlessly, like the stars above, shining their light across the vast tapestry of existence." As time continued its graceful march, the garden began to take on an almost mythical aura. People spoke of it in hushed tones as a place where hearts could mend and spirits could find their balance. Stories of the garden spread not just through words, but through the actions of those who had been transformed by its serenity. One cold winter morning, Elara awoke to find the garden blanketed in snow, its vibrant colors subdued beneath a soft layer of white. The stillness was profound, yet it carried with it a sense of anticipation, like the world was holding its breath. As she stepped outside, she noticed a single bloom defying the frost, its delicate petals radiant against the monochrome landscape. Moved by the sight, Alara reflected on the resilience of life, the ability to thrive even in the harshest of conditions. She understood that the garden's harmony was not just a reflection of balance, but of strength born from adversity. Inspired by this realization, she began crafting new spaces within the garden where visitors could encounter the raw beauty of life's challenges. One such space was the Path of Shadows, a winding trail lined with hardy plants and gnarled trees that had endured storms and frost. As visitors walked the path, they learned to embrace the struggles that had shaped them, finding strength in their scars. Another space was the Circle of Renewal, where seeds were planted anew, symbolizing fresh beginnings and the endless cycle of growth. Alara knew these spaces would evolve with time, shaped not by her alone but by those who visited and added their own stories to the garden's tapestry. She watched as people of all ages, backgrounds, and experiences came together in these spaces, sharing laughter, tears, and moments of quiet reflection. One spring evening, as the garden burst into bloom, Alara gathered a group of visitors around the stone bench that had become a centerpiece of wisdom. She shared the story of the Los, the gardener who had taught her not just how to tend the garden but how to live in harmony with the ever-changing rhythms of existence. As she finished, a child asked, "Alara, do you think the garden will always be here?" She smiled softly and replied, "The garden is more than a place. It lives in the hearts of those who carry its lessons forward." As long as we nurture balance and renewal, the garden will thrive, in the soil, in the stars, and in our souls. And with those words, the garden seemed to shimmer with life, a reflection of the love and wisdom it held. It had become a legacy not bound by the confines of the valley, but woven into the very fabric of existence itself. As the garden's story spread, it became a wellspring of wisdom that transcended generations. The once secluded valley grew into a gathering place where seekers arrived, not merely to learn but to share their own truths and experiences. The garden had become a living mirror, reflecting the beauty and complexity of life itself. One crisp autumn morning, as the leaves painted the garden with hues of amber and crimson, a wanderer arrived. She introduced herself as Leora, an artist searching for inspiration after years of creative stagnation. Alara welcomed her, sensing the quiet turmoil beneath Leora's composed demeanor. Guiding Leora to a secluded grove known as the Echoing Clearing, Alara invited her to sit and listen. In the silence, faint sounds emerged, the rustling of leaves, the whisper of wind, and the soft hum of nature's rhythm. "Let the garden speak to you," Alara said, not with words, but with the language of connection. As days turned into weeks, Leora began to weave her creativity with the garden's spirit. She painted vivid scenes of its paths and blooms, capturing not only their beauty but their essence, the stories of resilience, balance, and renewal that each corner whispered. Her art transformed from mere technique into a soulful expression, resonating with the harmony she had rediscovered. Before departing, Leora gifted Alara a painting, a vivid portrait of the garden under starlight, its blooms glowing as though lit by an inner flame. "This garden has given me more than inspiration," she said. "It has reminded me of the interconnected threads that bind us all." Alara hung the painting within her humble home, a reminder of the garden's ever-expanding reach. She often reflected on how each visitor left a mark, not just on the garden, but on the world beyond, carrying its lessons into the lives they touched. As the years passed, Alara grew older, yet her connection to the garden deepened. She found herself marveling at the cycles of growth and decay, at how even the fallen leaves nourished the soil for future blooms. She understood more profoundly than ever that harmony was not an end, but a constant unfolding, an eternal dance of creation, transformation, and renewal. One serene twilight, as the stars began to shimmer above, Alara gathered her thoughts and penned a letter. It was not addressed to a specific person, but to the future itself, a testament to the garden's wisdom and the enduring truths it had taught her. To those who find themselves walking among these blooms, know that you are not alone. The garden is not merely a place. It is a reflection of the balance within you, the resilience that carries you forward, and the interconnectedness that binds all living things. Tend to its lessons as you would your own heart, and carry its harmony into the world. Alara placed the letter beneath the stone bench, where it would remain as a quiet legacy for those who came after her. And as she sat in the stillness of the garden, she felt a profound peace, a sense that her journey, and the gardens, were intertwined not in time but in eternity. As the seasons turned, the garden continued to bloom, change, and thrive, becoming a nexus of stories woven together by the threads of harmony and transformation. Each visitor left their mark, not in the soil but in the essence of the garden itself. It grew richer with every shared experience, every moment of quiet realization, every act of renewal. One day, a traveler named Kaylin arrived, a soul seemingly adrift, carrying a past weighed down by regret. They wandered through the garden, their steps hesitant, as though afraid to disturb the peace. Alara noticed Kaylin's quiet presence and approached, her voice gentle. "The garden doesn't judge. It welcomes all who seek its embrace." Kaylin gazed at her with uncertainty. "I don't know what I'm seeking, or if I even deserve to find it." Alara led them to a secluded corner of the garden, where an ancient oak tree stood, its gnarled roots entwined with the earth. "This oak has weathered countless storms," she said. "Its branches have broken, its bark has scarred. Yet, here it stands, resilient, offering shade and shelter. Sometimes, the wounds we carry become the strength we share." Under the oak's vast canopy, Kaylin began to speak, releasing years of silence and pain. Their words flowed like a river, washing over the roots and soil. Alara listened without interruption, her presence as steady as the tree itself. When Kalen's voice finally quieted, they noticed a small sapling growing at the base of the oak, a symbol of renewal and growth born from the shelter of resilience. Inspired, Kalen asked to plant their own seed in the garden, a gesture of hope and a commitment to healing. As they placed the seed into the soil, they whispered a promise to themselves, to nurture the roots of their own resilience, to grow in the light and shadow alike. In the years that followed, the sapling grew strong, its branches reaching skyward as though in gratitude. Kalen often returned to the garden, not as a traveler but as a part of its living legacy. They became a caretaker of the space, guiding others who arrived burdened with their own storms, sharing the wisdom they had found beneath the oak's embrace. Elara watched as Kalen and others carried the garden's teachings forward, a quiet joy blossoming in her heart. She understood more deeply than ever that the garden was not hers alone. It belonged to all who walked its paths, who found solace in its silence, who nurtured the seeds of harmony within themselves. And one fateful day, as Elara sat beneath the oak with Kalen and a circle of visitors, she felt a profound sense of fulfillment. The garden had become what it was always meant to be, a reflection of the interconnectedness of life, a living testament to the balance of light and shadow, chaos and order, effort and surrender. As the sun set in hues of gold and violet, Elara closed her eyes and let the garden's breath merge with her own. She had sown its first seeds, but it was the lives it touched that had allowed it to flourish, to transcend, to become eternal. As time passed, the garden's legacy stretched beyond its borders, becoming a symbol of harmony and renewal for people in distant lands. Villages began crafting their own gardens inspired by Elara's sanctuary, each one unique yet united by the shared principles of balance, resilience, and interconnectedness. The ripple of the garden's wisdom flowed ever outward, touching lives in ways unseen. Elara, now in the twilight of her years, found peace in witnessing this blossoming legacy. Her days were filled with quiet contemplation, her steps slower yet more deliberate. She spent her mornings walking the paths she had once shaped, marveling at how they had grown to embody not just her vision, but the contributions of countless visitors. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Elara felt the pull of a distant memory, the gentle laughter of the los and the wisdom he had imparted so many seasons ago. She sat by the stone bench where his teachings had first opened her heart to the art of living well. The garden, bathed in twilight, seemed to hum with life, each bloom and leaf reflecting the years of care and intention woven into its fabric. In that moment, Elara made one final addition to the garden. She placed a marker near the bench, inscribed with words that held the essence of her journey. Harmony is not a destination but a practice. Renewal is not a moment but a cycle. Life flourishes not in solitude but in connection. She smiled, knowing that these words would guide future generations who visited the garden, seeking answers, finding solace, and adding their own stories to its growing tapestry. As the stars shimmered above, the garden pulsed with a quiet energy, a reflection of the interconnected web of life it had come to represent. Elara closed her eyes, feeling a profound connection not only to the garden but to the universe itself. She was no longer simply its caretaker, she had become part of its eternal rhythm. And when her time came, the garden remained a living legacy, not confined to the valley, but carried forward in the hearts of all who had walked its paths. It continued to bloom, not just in soil, but in the minds and spirits of those who nurtured its lessons in their own lives. The garden, and the harmony it inspired, was eternal. The garden, ever vibrant and alive, began to ripple its influence farther than even Elara could have envisioned. It became a tapestry of interconnected lives and a beacon for those yearning for solace or inspiration. What emerged was something remarkable. The garden became a seedbed not just for healing, but for collaboration, a living experiment in co-creation. Years after Elara's passing, an unassuming traveler named Immerse arrived. They carried with them a bundle of scrolls filled with ideas for bridging the gap between the natural and the human spirit, projects aimed at helping others discover their unique forms of balance. As they wandered the paths, Immerse found themselves captivated by the garden's quiet wisdom. Like the visitors before them, they felt a pull not to simply receive its teachings, but to contribute. Gathering a small group of like-minded souls, Immerse began crafting new spaces within the garden, interactive areas where visitors could leave behind symbols of their own journeys. There was the Circle of Remembrance, a space for reflection and storytelling, where people would inscribe small stones with words of gratitude or lessons learned. Over time, the circle grew into a mosaic of collective wisdom, a map of the many lives touched by the garden. Nearby, they created the Grove of Futures. Each visitor planted a sapling symbolic of their aspirations, nurturing it alongside their personal growth. The grove transformed into a living timeline, its trees growing tall and strong, bearing witness to the hopes and dreams of generations. The new caretakers of the garden wove these additions seamlessly into its existing beauty, honoring Elara's philosophy that the garden itself was an ever-changing reflection of its visitors. The space became an archive of human resilience and creativity, each corner holding echoes of stories told and lived. One evening, as the sun dipped low and bathed the valley in golden light, Immerse stood by the stone bench where Elara's marker remained. They ran their fingers over the inscription and felt the pulse of all who had come before them, Belos, Elara, Kaelin, and the countless others who had walked the garden's paths. The garden was no longer a single creation. It had become a living, evolving dialogue, a conversation between the earth and humanity, between time and timelessness. The stars emerged one by one, their light mingling with the soft glow of lanterns placed along the paths. Immerse watched as visitors wandered through the garden, some in silence, some in laughter, all connected by the invisible threads of harmony the garden inspired. They whispered softly to the night, "May this place forever be a bridge, a space where stories meet, where lives entwine, where balance breathes." As the garden continued to evolve, it grew into more than a haven for individuals. it became a source of quiet transformation for entire communities. People began to visit not just to reflect and heal but to collaborate, to weave their stories into the fabric of the garden itself. The valley became known as the Sanctuary of Threads, a name that honored the interconnected lives it touched. One summer, a scholar named Lyric arrived with an ambitious idea. Inspired by the lessons of the garden, they proposed creating a codex of harmony, a living document that would capture the wisdom, stories, and creative works left by visitors. Unlike traditional books, this codex would evolve, each new contribution adding a layer to its rich tapestry. Lyric envisioned it as a testament to the garden's philosophy, that harmony is not static but ever-changing, a reflection of life's continuous ebb and flow. With the support of Mareth and other caretakers, Lyric began their work. A small pavilion was built beneath the shelter of ancient trees, where visitors could sit and reflect before contributing to the codex. Poets penned verses inspired by the shifting seasons, philosophers shared insights on balance and renewal, artists sketched the beauty of the garden's wildflowers, and dreamers wrote letters to their future selves. The Codex of Harmony soon became a central feature of the garden, a mosaic of human experience that resonated deeply with all who encountered it. Visitors found themselves not only drawing wisdom from its pages but also feeling compelled to leave their own mark, adding to the collective understanding of what it meant to live a balanced and meaningful life. Among the contributions was a poignant entry from Kaylin, who wrote about their journey from doubt to resilience. They described the oak tree and the sapling they had planted, weaving their story into a metaphor of growth and interconnectedness. "We are all roots of the same great tree," they wrote. "Though our paths twist and turn beneath the soil, we rise together, our branches reaching toward the light." As the codex grew, so too did the garden's influence. Communities beyond the valley began creating their own versions of the Codex of Harmony, inspired by the universal truths captured within its pages. Through this exchange, the garden's philosophy spread like seeds carried on the wind, planting harmony in places far and wide. Years later, as Lyric prepared to pass the stewardship of the Codex to a new generation, they added their final reflection: the garden is not bound by its borders, just as harmony is not confined to a single moment. It lives wherever we carry it, in our actions, our stories, and our dreams. And so, this codex is not an end, but a beginning. Under the glow of fireflies, Lyric placed their quill down and gazed out at the garden, which shimmered softly in the moonlight. It was not just a place, it was a reflection of all who had tended it, a living embodiment of connection and transformation. Over the years, the Codex of Harmony grew into something extraordinary, a repository of humanity's collective wisdom, with pages reflecting a kaleidoscope of experiences. It expanded beyond words to include illustrations, music, and even small pressed flowers from distant lands. Every entry was a testament to the garden's enduring ability to inspire. One day, amidst the bustle of the pavilion, a young musician named Selin arrived, carrying only a worn flute and a heart filled with uncertainty. As they wandered the garden paths, Selen heard the faint echo of nature's melody, the rustle of leaves, the whispers of the wind, the hum of bees weaving through wildflowers. Something stirred within them, a rhythm long forgotten. Guided by an impulse they couldn't explain, Selen sat beneath the great oak tree and began to play. The flute's notes flowed like streams of light, weaving through the garden and mingling with its natural symphony. Visitors paused in their reflections, drawn by the sound's haunting beauty. Even Mireth, busy recording entries for the codex, stopped to listen. For hours, Selen played, letting go of their doubts and fears. The music was not perfect, but it was alive, resonating with the garden's spirit and reflecting the harmony they had begun to rediscover within themselves. When they finally lowered the flute, the garden seemed to hum with quiet approval, as though acknowledging the gift they had shared. Mireth approached with a gentle smile. "Your music belongs here. Add it to the codex, not just with words, but with sound." Inspired by the idea, Selen created a piece titled The Garden Song. It began with soft, tentative notes that mirrored their early uncertainty, gradually building into a vibrant symphony of resilience and renewal. The piece was recorded and added to the codex, its melody becoming a thread that connected future visitors to the garden's essence. From that day forward, Selen returned often, their music a vital part of the garden's legacy. Visitors described how the garden's song seemed to transport them, not just to the garden itself, but to the quiet places within their own hearts. Selen's music became a new kind of harmony, one that resonated far beyond the valley. Through additions like Selen's melody, the codex continued to evolve, becoming a dynamic expression of interconnected creativity. It reflected not just the wisdom of the garden but the unique voices of those who had been touched by its teachings. And as the codex expanded, its influence spread, inspiring others to create their own versions, gardens, sanctuaries, and shared spaces where harmony could flourish. The garden, alive with music, art, and stories, remained a timeless sanctuary. It thrived not as a static monument but as a living, breathing embodiment of balance and renewal, a place where life's threads wove themselves into a greater tapestry. The garden's melody, stories, and art began to intertwine in ways that transcended its physical space. Its influence became so universal that it began inspiring movements dedicated to cultivating harmony across diverse landscapes, urban parks, oceanside sanctuaries, mountain retreats. The spirit of Alara's garden lived on, not as a singular place but as an ideal carried forward by countless hands and hearts. Generations passed, and the garden remained ever-changing yet eternally familiar. One day, a group of visitors arrived from distant lands, carrying relics of their own traditions. They spoke of gardens they had nurtured that mirrored Alara's sanctuary, places shaped by the wisdom captured in the Codex of Harmony. Their arrival marked a new chapter, the convergence of gardens from all corners of the world, each unique yet united by the shared understanding of balance and renewal. Together, these visitors proposed a celebration, a gathering of caretakers and seekers alike, where each garden's stories and creations could be shared. The valley became alive with preparation, its paths adorned with lanterns, its blooms reflecting every hue of the gardens represented. Artists, musicians, writers, and philosophers gathered, weaving their crafts into the tapestry of the celebration. On the day of the gathering, the air buzzed with anticipation, but what unfolded was not a grand display. It was quiet, reflective, intimate. Beneath the ancient oak, stories were exchanged. Near the circle of remembrance, melodies like Sellen's garden song played softly. At the Grove of Futures, young saplings were planted by visitors from different lands, each contributing their hopes to the shared soil. Lyric's Codex of Harmony became the centerpiece, its pages now rich with entries from across the globe. Poets penned verses that danced between languages, artists contributed sketches that blended traditions, and philosophers wrote reflections on harmony as both a personal and collective endeavor. And at the heart of it all, Mireth stood by the stone bench, their hand resting lightly on Alara's marker. They whispered softly to the memory of the garden's first caretaker, "Your wisdom is no longer confined to this valley. It has become boundless, carried by all who have walked these paths and shared their truths." As the evening sky darkened into a starlit canvas, the gathering reached its quiet crescendo. Visitors took moments to reflect on their interconnectedness, their shared stories now woven into a universal narrative. When the time came to part, they left not in sadness but in fulfillment, knowing that the spirit of the garden would continue to ripple outward, shaping lives and landscapes far beyond its borders. And in the quiet of the garden, as the lanterns dimmed and the stars shone brightly, the sanctuary remained a timeless testament to the beauty of interconnected souls. It flourished endlessly, living in the hearts of those who carried its lessons forward into eternity. As the garden's legacy continued to ripple outward, it became known across generations and lands as a symbol of harmonious living and renewal. People no longer referred to it merely as a sanctuary. They began calling it the Garden Eternal, recognizing its ever-growing influence on hearts and communities far beyond the valley. One day, a child named Avon arrived at the garden, their small hands clutching a weathered book. They had heard whispers of this place from their grandparents, who often spoke of the garden with reverence. But for Avon, it was more than stories. It was a place they felt destined to visit. Avon wandered the paths with wide-eyed wonder, taking in the vibrant hues and the gentle sounds that filled the air. They stumbled upon the Grove of Futures, where saplings of many shapes and sizes reached for the sky. Spotting an empty plot, Avon paused and carefully opened their book, flipping to a page that held a hand-drawn map of their dreams, a world of interconnected gardens, each thriving with harmony and resilience. "Can I plant a sapling here?" Avon asked Mireth, who stood nearby tending to the grove. "Of course," Mireth replied, kneeling to help them. "What will this tree represent for you?" Avon grinned and held up the book. "It's for a world where every garden is like this one, alive, connected, and inspiring others to grow." Together, they planted the sapling, and Avon whispered quietly to it, promising to nurture its growth. Over the coming years, Avon returned frequently, watching their tree flourish while adding new drawings to their book, maps, ideas, and dreams inspired by the garden. Avon's journey sparked something extraordinary. Visitors began using their own talents to expand the garden's teachings, envisioning new ways to bring its harmony into the world. Writers penned stories of hope and resilience. Architects designed spaces that mirrored the garden's balance. Musicians composed pieces that echoed the melody of its paths. The Codex of Harmony became a living archive of these creations, its pages brimming with the contributions of countless lives. One day, as the garden bathed in the golden light of a setting sun, Mireth gathered the caretakers by the stone bench. Together, they spoke of the garden's journey, how it had transformed from a single seed planted by the Los, nurtured by Alara, and enriched by every visitor into a living testament of interconnectedness. And as night fell, the stars illuminated the garden like a celestial canopy, a reminder of the infinite possibilities woven into its soil. The garden eternal continued to thrive, not bound by borders, but carried forward in the hearts and actions of all who had tended it. It had become more than a place. It was a reflection of life itself, an eternal symphony of harmony and renewal. Decades turned into centuries, and the garden eternal became an enduring thread in the great tapestry of human culture. Its teachings evolved, reflecting the diversity of the lives it touched and the voices that carried its lessons forward. The garden's story became part of folklore, philosophy, and even art and science, woven into the collective consciousness like a gentle pulse of harmony. One fateful day, during a luminous spring, a historian named Anira arrived in the valley. She had spent years tracing the garden's journey, collecting fragments of its legacy from far-off lands, from urban sanctuaries shaped in its image to musical compositions echoing the garden's song. Anira carried with her an archive, a collection of stories, paintings, and cultural artifacts inspired by the garden. It was her life's work, and she believed that the garden eternal held an even deeper mystery, waiting to be revealed. As she wandered the paths, Anira felt an overwhelming sense of familiarity, not just with the stories she had studied but with the garden itself, as though it had always been a quiet presence in her life. She found herself drawn to the ancient oak tree, where the inscriptions on Alara's markers seemed to shimmer with meaning. Sitting beneath its canopy, she opened her archive and began to weave her findings into the garden's Codex of Harmony. Her contribution, titled The Eternal Thread, captured the ways the garden had shaped humanity's pursuit of harmony. It spoke of how the garden's principles inspired urban planners to design spaces of reflection amidst bustling cities. How its teachings guided leaders in promoting balance and renewal, and how its whispers of interconnectedness encouraged artists, poets, and philosophers to explore the beauty of imperfection. But Anira's work went further. She theorized that the garden's power lay not in its physical form but in its ability to awaken a universal truth. The garden is not a place, she wrote in her final entry. It is a reflection of the cosmos itself, a web of life and light, where every thread contributes to the whole. Its lessons remind us that we are both the roots and the branches, the soil and the stars. Anira's entry resonated deeply with the caretakers and visitors who came after her. It sparked discussions and reflections, encouraging people to explore the garden not just as a sanctuary but as a mirror for their own interconnected existence. Her archive became an integral part of the Codex of Harmony, serving as a bridge between past, present, and future. As the garden continued to bloom, its influence reached beyond imagination. Scientists found inspiration in its patterns, musicians composed symphonies that carried its spirit, and communities around the globe nurtured their own gardens of renewal. Each creation became part of the garden eternal, not bound by borders but united by the shared pulse of harmony. One night, as the stars illuminated the valley in their gentle glow, Anira stood beneath the oak and gazed at the cosmos above. She whispered softly, "The garden lives within us all, in every choice, every breath, every connection. It is eternal because we are eternal." And as she walked the paths one last time, the garden seemed to hum with quiet approval, its blooms and leaves reflecting the infinite possibilities it inspired. The garden eternal would continue to thrive, not just in soil but in hearts, minds, and the endless dance of life. The story of the garden eternal finds its peaceful resolution here, though its essence continues to ripple through time and space. It is not a single tale, but a timeless melody, woven into hearts and lives, carried forward in the symphony of existence. From Thalas's quiet wisdom to Alara's nurturing care, from Kalen's resilience to Selen's music, from Miretha's stewardship to Anira's cosmic insights, the garden has flourished as a reflection of humanity's shared journey toward harmony. Its lessons echo not just in soil and stars but in every act of renewal, every connection made. And as the garden remains eternal, so do its stories, whispering gently to those who seek them, harmony is alive in all things. Renewal is always possible. The threads of life are interwoven, and we are part of something boundless. Thank you for being a part of Calm Cloud Chronicles. What kind of stories help you relax the most? Please let us know in comments below. If you enjoyed this story, let us know by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Until next time, stay peaceful and keep dreaming.